Welcome back here into Inside the Game here on this Thursday morning, episode number 166. That's Nathan Wangler. I'm Jonathan Turner. Ryan Glinsky, our producer. We're joined here now by the head coach of the Ball State women's soccer program, Andy Stoots, who was hired back in March of this year, previously over at Missouri as an associate head coach who helped the Tigers to multiple standout individual performances, including all SEC selections. Kylie Simmons, Grace Petite, Melina Fisher, and Bella Hollenbach. He's done a great job in his previous roles, multiple years of experience, and we're now joined here again by the Ball State head coach, Andy Stoots, and welcome to Inside the Game.
Hey guys, thanks for having me in. It's certainly a pleasure and an honor to be on your podcast. You know, you put up the list of coaches that you've had just this week, and I'm really not sure I fit in that list of lineup of experienced and and very good coaches. But I am excited to be here this morning and look forward to the conversation.
No, absolutely. We've made this I would say intentional reach out to coaches across the country, not just in the Power 5 schools, but to get into the smaller conferences as well. And I'm not saying that the MAC is a smaller conference, but I'm saying we've made this intentional effort to reach out to all these different conferences. We've had a chance to talk with ACC. We had a chance to talk with the AAC yesterday in Bob Buthorn. We obviously talking with the MAC, talking with the Horizon League, Big Ten, right? We're getting into all these conferences, and every conference has its own unique challenges, right? It has its own unique way of the game itself. Not all conferences have ties. Right? Some have overtime rules still as well. And we actually had a chance yesterday to talk with Coach Burke about that because, you know, he's had more ties in the last number of years than he's had previously because of the overtime rules. Yeah. My first question for you is this. You're in your first year at the helm, right, at Ball State. What has been your biggest challenge stepping into this role, taking over this team?
You know, I don't know that I could really narrow it down to one specific challenge. Obviously, you know, going from a associate head coach role to a head coach role, there's going to be some learning for sure on the fly. And, you know, I think just going back to when I first got there in March, you know, I think learning Ball State was a big piece to it. I think learning about the players who we currently had on the team, you know, but I think for us as a coaching staff, I think getting the recruiting piece going really quickly was, I don't want to call it a challenge because we were lucky and fortunate to pick up some good players and get a good class going both in 26 and 2027. But I think the challenge was just trying to hit the ground running as soon as we got there. And then, you know, moving on from that, you know, you're there in March and man, the spring is over mid-April. So we were really only to be there for several weeks there in the spring. So I think challenge for us going into the season from a team perspective was just making sure that we didn't overwhelm the group, that we learned our players' skill set, what they can do, what they weren't as good at, and just try our best to set them up to be successful, to be able to compete in year one.
Yeah, and obviously you going, as you mentioned, from an associate head coach to a head coach, obviously there's a learning curve there, especially when a lot of associate head coaches, their primary role is obviously in the training and recruitment of a lot of players, right? And so you have this recruitment background. I mean, and again, every school is different how they handle that process, but was that your primary role as an associate head coach at your previous job in Missouri, was to the recruitment road, get on that road and go out and recruit players as well as, you know, train the team and the head coach was the general manager, so to speak?
Yeah, I'd say a little bit of both. I mean, I certainly did a good amount of recruiting and a good amount of training on the field. But I think what I would say from a lot of my experiences, and including Missouri, is, you know, I was fortunate enough to work for head coaches who invested in my development, right? They allowed me to be a part of a lot, allowed me to have some role in decision making. So really fortunate that I had those opportunities from, you know, not just Stephanie Golan, but, you know, several other coaches that I worked for that, you know, allowed me to be me and develop. And, you know, and I think it really did help rolling into this head coaching role. Certainly there's a learning curve when you take a new experience in any sort of way, but just really grateful that I had those opportunities so I could be a little bit more prepared than just going in blind.
Coach, I wanted to work in a really quick side note here because I know you're a native of Bristol, Tennessee, and it mentions that you're a 4-year letter winner as a goalkeeper at Milligan University. Which were they an NAIA program when you were playing for them?
Yeah, they were. It was NAI.
They were.
And that
Okay.
was late '90s, early 2000s, and I would assume that the NAI was a lot different then than it is now.
A little bit. Yeah, definitely a little bit. I just wanted to mention that I come from the NAI level 2. I started at
Okay.
Cornerstone University, so I love my my NAI folks. But anyways, I wanted to ask, because going from a conference like the SEC, obviously, to the MAC, there's a little bit of it, or a lot of bit of a difference there. But just getting into a new environment, we talked about the switch of role from an associate head coach to now being the head man at Ball State. When you get on campus, what's the first thing you do when you get into that brand new environment? Because we talk to a lot of these coaches that have been in the places they've been at for a decade now, or 15 years, or however long it's been. It's your first year coming into this brand new program in a brand new conference in a brand new area. What's task number one when you walk in the building?
I think task number one is to get to know the players that are currently there. I mean, I think in college athletics, like when there's a new head coach, like there's going to be some players who don't want to stay. There's going to be some players who want to stay. But I think there's a lot of emotion on their part that goes with it, right? They don't really know who this new person is, or what the philosophy is, or what the agenda is, or any of that sort of stuff. So I think for me, the first piece was to build relationships with the players who were currently there, and get to know them, because ultimately they chose Ball State, and it's not their fault. Not their fault that they have a new head coach, right? Not my fault either. But I think just getting to know them, getting to know who they are as people, who they are as soccer players, and really why they chose Ball State, and why they chose to stay. I mean, I'm fortunate because we have a lot of really good players on the team that would have had some opportunities to go, to any number of places, whether it be in the MAC level or the SEC, ACC, Big Ten type level programs, and they all chose to stay. So, I think that was for me first and foremost, is get to know them, get to know why they chose Ball State, and what it is that keeps them there.
And in year one, obviously, really important to do that. How have you been able to meet them halfway? And do you feel that buy-in from them as well, that they're still willing to stick it out at Ball State because they came here for a reason, despite the fact that maybe they have a new head coach? Have you found that there is that buy-in?
Absolutely. I don't know that I could be more fortunate with the situation we're in when it comes to that. I think when you go into any program new, as a head coach, new staff, however it may be, I think you understand that you have to understand there's a culture that exists there, right? You don't know what that is. You don't know if it's good. You don't know if it's bad. You don't really know anything about it. So I would say that, extremely fortunate that we walked into a program that had a really good relational culture already. And, from day one, with as much as I tried to embrace them, they embraced us right off the bat. So we had some really good training in the spring, some really good moments in the spring. We tried to do a lot of things with them. We did a bunch of stuff over the summer, just in terms of team Zooms and all that sort of stuff. But, gosh, every time I get that question, that's the one thing that I say is certainly I could have done a lot, but man, I am extremely fortunate that the players who were there and the freshmen who were incoming, who we didn't recruit, embraced us just as much as we embraced them. So, that was that was a little bit of a relief, because again, like there's a culture, but you're not really sure what that's like,
Right.
Until you come in.
Right.
Hey, Coach Stoots. Ryan here. I'm actually a Central Michigan Chippewa, so I really appreciate Maction, and especially women's soccer. I had a chance to cover Central Michigan soccer last year. Actually called the Ball State Central Michigan game last year. And my question for you, so I, as a high schooler, I actually got accepted into Ball State. I think Ball State's campus is beautiful. Been there for a couple of games for women's basketball as well. I think it's a beautiful campus. I like Muncie, and I overall think the broadcasting program at Ball State's fantastic, by the way. But my question for you is, why did you choose Ball State? Why did you choose to come to Muncie, Indiana, and be the head coach of Ball State?
Yeah, really, really good question. And I would say that the longer I've spent time with the players and longer I've spent time at Ball State, my story matches theirs. From my first conversation with them at Ball State, I I could get the sense that there was investment in athletics, which is big, right? Because as a coach, you want to be in a situation where you can compete. And the more people I talk to within the athletic department, the more I always go back to, one of my basic philosophies is like the people make the place, right? It's all about the people that you're around. So I really enjoyed my conversations with them. Really got the sense that there were a lot of really good people who were invested in our student athletes who themselves were invested in their own experience at Ball State. So, going on campus, I'd never been to Ball State before. Obviously heard of it. I know the previous coach, Josh Reif, and we've talked a bunch over the years. But, I'd never really been on campus, didn't know much about the program, didn't know much about Ball State in general. And man, from the moment that I first stepped on campus, you're right. It's a beautiful place. You spend time there and you're like, wow, you can't believe that you're in, small town Indiana, right? When you come on campus. Amen. But the more I got to know people, the more I was just like, you want to be around people who care about you, right? You want to be around people who want you to be your best. And I just got that feel from a lot of people on campus. Very welcoming community, and that's what I would say after being there for 6 months or so is, the relationships that you build, not just within athletics, but within the broader Ball State community. I think we've been fortunate to get to know a lot of good people within the community in general, Muncie community. And not only have they wrapped around their arms around me, but our coaching staff, my family, all of that. I mean, I just can't go on and on about how special the community Muncie is. So the same reason that the players told me that they chose Ball State, that's the same reason that I chose Ball State. So, I would encourage anybody, if you haven't spent time around Muncie, you haven't been to Ball State, you got to get there and check things out.
Oh, I would agree with that.
No, that's great, and obviously I think it's been pretty cool because we haven't talked to a new head coach at a new university this season, and ultimately we talked to a lot of coaches, as Nate had already alluded to, who've been in the program for 12, 15, sometimes longer, and obviously you have this unique experience now coming in this unique environment, right? Your new roster, limitations have come out here the last couple of years. Typically, a coach coming into a new program maybe has a couple of years to kind of figure it out, right? And because usually that third year becomes like your year, right? You start to recruit players. Yep. The Horizon League and the Mid-American Conference are very much aligned, and I think there's an equal amount of a dissension between both of those conferences, right? And we've seen it time and time again. And so far this year, in your first year, you have beaten both of your Horizon League opponents, right? Purdue Fort Wayne, as well as IU Indy. Now, is there a kind of like an underlying tone at the universities in between the MAC and the Horizon League where ADs and athletic directors are saying, hey, you have to beat the Horizon League, you have to beat, or is that part of that process?
To be honest with you, I have not heard that. That has not been something that that has come across my my radar. But I think one thing I know about ADs and administrators is they want to win just as much as we do, right? So I think anytime you can beat any opponent, they're happy. But I do think specifically the in-state opponents are different, right? Whether it be the ones that are so-called above our level or the ones that are our more peer type institutions. I think anytime we step on the field, we want to try to beat whoever it is that's across the field from us. So, but I do agree 100%. I think our leagues are very similar in terms of level of play and schools and all of that. So, I do think there is a little bit of a factor of trying to make sure you position yourself above your local peer institutions, for sure. But I would say both of those games were extremely competitive and, fun games to be a part of, and just really happy that we came out on the positive end of that.
No, I mean, and the reason why I asked that question is again because a lot of the players, student athletes who are choosing to come to Ball State are also probably in the same ballpark of looking at going to Purdue Fort Wayne, especially in the state of Indiana, right? Or going to an Oakland University, Detroit Mercy, going to a Bowling Green, right? And so, that's the player. And if a team like Cleveland State, who we had a chance to talk with here last week, They have gone to the NCAA tournament. I think the last 3 years they've gone to the NCAA tournament. Is that could be a factor in recruitment, right? If you can get yourself to the College Cup. And my next question is this: is that the Ball State took a step back last year as a program, right? The year before that, they'd finished third in the MAC, and then last year they finished 11th. Had an off year. Right now, you guys are currently sitting at 4-3-2, 1-1. Obviously, very early. 1-1-1, very early in the MAC season. But where are your expectations in this first year in the MAC about getting back to the top, or at that top 5 in the top mix of that conference?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll go back to what we've preached since day one is, we can get caught up in, in all the results, right? But before we can do that, we've got to be the best version of us. And I don't know that we've quite done that yet. But that's kind of been the goal is, maximize each individual, maximize our team as a whole. And I believe that good things will come if we can do that. And I think we've been really close in moments. We've got a lot of new players this year. Close to half the roster is new. We've got a lot of younger players playing, a lot of freshmen playing, some returning players who haven't played a ton in the past that are giving us big minutes. So I think we're still kind of in that process of figuring that out. I mean, I know we're halfway through here, and I'm not sure that's ideal for me or the squad, but we keep taking steps forward. We keep getting better. And that's kind of where my focus is let's just see what will happen if we make us the best us. And so that's our primary focus for sure. But, from a coach standpoint, from a competitive standpoint, every time out are we trying to do our best so that we can position ourselves towards the top of that league for sure, because 6 people or 6 programs will make our conference tournament. And I told our team the other day, I don't want to be the one that's sitting around twiddling our thumbs that first week in November when we could be playing. So, our goal is to be in that mix at the end. And, I think we have the tools that we can compete to be there. But it's on us to kind of maximize who we are as a team.
Tonight you have an opponent in Buffalo, right? New York. You're taking the Buffalo Bulls. And we had a chance yesterday, which we did not plan this, by the way. I think it's important. We even said this yesterday when we were setting up these interviews. Sean just happened to pick yesterday. You happened to pick today. And so it was kind of a unique situation for us to be like, hey, this is kind of cool. We get a chance to talk to two teams are going to be playing each other here over the next couple of days. So looking at tonight, you're going into Buffalo. We know how dominant they've been at home. We know how they've been over the last 12 years in the MAC. How are you going to approach tonight's game, being it's your first time in Buffalo as a Ball State head coach?
Yeah, I don't think any different than any other game, really. I mean, I think we know how good they are. We know how talented they are. We know how well coached they are. But I'll just, I keep going back to, the focus for us just needs to continue to remain us being our best, because our last 2 performances, I'm not sure that I was overly thrilled with those, although there were a lot of really good moments in our last game. Kind of an unfortunate situation led to a red card. But I think tonight for me, it's about us competing as hard as we can compete, executing tactically as best as we can, and just taking another step closer to being the best version of us. But there's no doubt it's going to be a very difficult game. Like I said, well coached, very talented, tough place to play. I think just being in that large stadium and on a football field with the football lines and all that sort of stuff. But one thing that we've pushed from the very beginning with this group is no excuses, right? There's nothing that's really standing in our way of giving our best and being the most competitive team on the field in any game. So that's going to be our focus, and we'll see how that works out at the end of it.
You've mentioned a lot about getting the best version of yourself, and I like that. There's a lot of coaches that, and I agree with that mentality that the only thing that you can control is you, right? And so that's the most important thing that you should be focusing on all the time on the field. Aesthetically speaking, when we're watching you guys, what is, in your mind, what is the best version of you guys?
I think when we're able to get good pressure on the ball and maintain our organization defensively, and then when we do force turnovers, that we're able to get it on the ground and move the ball quickly, switch the point of attack, and create chances with a lot of players running forward. I think that I think is what we've seen has been the best of us, because a couple things that I'm really pleased with this group is, they've sort of taken on doing things differently in a very positive way, an enthusiastic way. And I'm excited about that. We've shown glimpses of being very, very good, but we've kind of been okay in moments where we've stepped out and pressed teams, and we've been okay in moments where we've had to lay off and just protect our half of the field a little bit more. So they've shown that they can have a little bit of flexibility, but I think when we're at our best, we are pushing the pace of the game onto our opponent, and ultimately that's what we want to do on both sides of the ball, if at all possible.
We have made this habit on our network, especially during these interviews and across our platform, to talk about food. It is something that we think brings people together. Again, I even made this joke yesterday about, except if you want to put pineapple on your pizza, that might create some conflict. But aside from that, you're obviously you're new to Muncie, Indiana, right? You just come there in March, and this is where you've now put down your stake, so to speak, and now you get to Ball State, and people are probably recommending a lot of places to go get food, to maybe go and shop. What have you found in Muncie, Indiana? It's a great place to go maybe and have a family dinner or to have that meal.
Okay. Yeah, I think there's a couple of places. So right on campus, there's a place called Roots Burger Bar. Excellent. Tons of different choices, burgers, chicken sandwiches, the whole deal. They kind of have a little bit more of the sports bar vibe, but kind of a more of a laid back vibe there. I think on the other end of that, if you are looking for an excellent steak, an excellent dining experience, I would say Lahode Steakhouse downtown is an awesome place to go. If you are looking for a place to dress down, listen to good music, and have an old school burger with a pint, Savage's Ale House is a good place. I think I could go on and on. So if you haven't been to Muncie, there's several places. I would say the downtown area in Muncie is being revitalized. Lots of really awesome things going on down there. And then there's a huge project called The Village that's just right off campus at Ball State that, the university and private investors have invested about $200 million in that space. And it's got shopping, it's got restaurants, it's got college type places, just a little bit of everything. So, a ton of energy around Muncie right now, a ton of progress, but I would say for me, like, those would kind of be my recommendations. If you're coming to Muncie to grab a meal, those would be the places I'd say hit up.
I was just looking at the Roots Burger Bar website right there. When you get in there, it says wings for 8 bone-in wings for $9.99, or they choose. They have
That's a
tacos. You can choose 2 for $6 or 4 for $10, but they have fish, steak, chicken, or ground beef tacos. So that all sounds amazing. So. But, hey, well, Andy, we appreciate you stopping on by. We know it's obviously the middle of soccer season. Clearly, you're in Buffalo, New York right now, right? So getting ready for a game here tonight at
a good time to go to Buffalo.
The best time is right now.
Yeah, that's right. Right before all the snow, right?
But we appreciate you stopping on by here. We wish you much success, obviously, not only in your career, but obviously the rest of the way here in this 2025 season. And we look forward to having you back here in the future.
Awesome. Thanks so much, guys. I do appreciate it. I appreciate you reaching out, and, excited to be on here and really appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Andy Stoots, the